The Silent Guard. What the Judge Didn't Know, Part 1. The glint that changed everything. It was a late morning in London, and the sun was casting crisp golden beams through the courtyard in front of Kensington Palace. Tourists bustled about with cameras, laughing and posing in front of the iconic crimson-coated royal guards standing stiffly at their posts. One man, however, stood apart from the crowd, not because of his camera, but because of the critical eye behind his gold-rimmed glasses. Judge Malcolm Beresford, a respected but often polarizing figure in the Crown Court, moved through the crowd with the grace of someone used to commanding silence in the courtroom. Dressed in a sharply tailored navy suit, his silver-streaked hair combed meticulously, he glanced down at the timepiece inherited from his father, a man who had also worn the robe of the judiciary. Still precise to the second, he murmured with admiration as the changing of the guard ended and the new soldiers took their posts. As someone who'd spent his life defending order, Judge Beresford had always appreciated displays of discipline. "This is what structure looks like," he mumbled, half to himself. But then, something disrupted that vision. One of the guards, a statuesque man with dark brown skin, piercing eyes fixed ahead, and an aura of silent pride, had something shimmering around his neck. A faint glint, metallic, barely visible. Beresford squinted. There it was again, hanging just at the collar of his red tunic, a small silver cross. His face tightened. Part 2. The confrontation. Religious symbols on ceremonial uniforms? That couldn't be regulation. Judge Beresford's mind immediately returned to cases he had presided over involving religious neutrality in public institutions. His own distaste for overt religious expression had roots buried deep in childhood pain. A devout father who weaponized scripture, a mother who died praying for a miracle that never came. His voice grew cold with indignation. "This is a violation," he muttered. He approached the guard, stepping right into his field of view. "Excuse me, soldier," he began, his voice carrying with practiced authority. "That cross, you're aware it's against uniform regulations?" The guard did not flinch. He stood motionless, eyes forward. "I'm talking to you." Beresford pressed, now louder. "This is a public symbol. You're representing the crown. You cannot wear personal religious items while on duty." A crowd began to gather, tourists sensing tension, whispering and watching. "You may not recognize me," he added, straightening to full height. "But I'm Judge Malcolm Beresford, and I've ruled on multiple cases concerning religious neutrality and public service. This," he pointed at the cross, "is illegal." The guard remained silent. "I'm ordering you to appear before Westminster Magistrates Court tomorrow, 10 a.m., he declared, pulling a business card from his jacket and scribbling a makeshift summons on the back. He tucked it into the guard's tunic. "Fail to appear, and I'll see that a warrant is issued." Gasps rippled through the crowd, but the guard still didn't respond. Judge Beresford turned on his heel and walked away, convinced justice was on his side. Part 3. The courtroom. Surprised the next morning, the steps of Westminster Magistrates Court echoed with the sound of polished boots. Gasps and murmurs filled the lobby as Corporal Daniel Ashford, the same guard from the day before, entered in full ceremonial uniform, crimson tunic, white gloves, and that same quiet composure. No lawyer accompanied him. "You're representing yourself?" the court clerk asked, stunned. "Yes, ma'am," he replied calmly. Inside the courtroom, spectators filled the benches. Even a trio of elderly veterans sat in the back, medals glinting in the soft courtroom light. Judge Beresford swept in, black robes flowing, eyes scanning the gallery with mild irritation, until they landed on Corporal Ashford. The judge's eyes narrowed. "You've chosen to appear without legal representation?" Beresford asked. "I have, Your Honor." "So be it," the judge said, taking a breath. "Corporal Ashford, you are accused of 3 violations: disobeying military uniform code, disrespecting ceremonial tradition, and unlawfully displaying religious iconography while on active duty. These are serious charges." He launched into legal precedent, citing past rulings from Jameson versus Metropolitan Police and Williams versus Ministry of Defense. His tone was sharp, confident, building toward a crescendo of condemnation. The gallery was silent. Finally, he turned to Ashford. "Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Part 4. The revelation. Corporal Ashford stepped forward with military precision. "Yes, Your Honor," he said, voice strong and measured. "But first, a correction for the record. I am not just Corporal Ashford. I am Captain Daniel Ashford, formerly of the Judge Advocate General's Corps and a licensed barrister in England and Wales." Gasps filled the room. "I served 6 years as legal counsel to the 4th Infantry Regiment. I hold a first-class law degree from Oxford. I am fully qualified to represent myself in this court, and I appear here today not because your summons had legal weight, but out of respect for the law itself." Judge Beresford's mouth opened slightly, then closed. Ashford continued, now transitioning fully into courtroom rhythm. "To the first charge. Uniform Regulation 18C subsection 4 states that a religious item may be worn discreetly beneath the uniform if it has been approved by commanding officers and does not interfere with duty." He handed over an official document. "This is my authorization letter, signed by Lieutenant Colonel Miriam Denholm, dated 2021. Beresford took it, blinking. "As for the second charge, disrespect of tradition, my family has served in the British Armed Forces for 3 generations. My grandfather, who wore this cross, died at El Alamein. My wearing it isn't defiance. It's honor." He turned toward the gallery. "Regarding precedent, the cited case of Jameson specifically excludes ceremonial military units from its jurisdiction, and Williams addressed political insignia, not religious ones. Furthermore, in Edward v. UK, the European Court ruled that limited religious expression by uniformed personnel does not violate state neutrality." Another wave of stunned murmurs rippled through the crowd. "And finally," Ashford concluded, "this court has no jurisdiction over military uniform compliance. That authority rests solely with my commanding officers. This proceeding was invalid from the start." Part 5. The turning point. Before Beresford could speak, the courtroom doors opened. In stepped Colonel Miriam Denholm, medals shining across her chest. "If the court allows," she said, "I'd like to speak on behalf of Captain Ashford's accommodation process." Beresford, visibly shaken, nodded. Colonel Denholm presented a thick folder. "Captain Ashford's religious symbol was approved in accordance with Ministry of Defense Directive 119A. It is small, concealed, and does not interfere with duty. Accommodations of this nature have been granted to service members of various faiths." And regarding jurisdiction, she added firmly, "Uniform matters are internal military affairs, not civilian court issues." The judge's confidence, once ironclad, now fractured. "Given the legal and procedural flaws in this proceeding," Ashford said, "I respectfully move for immediate dismissal of all charges." Beresford sat in silence, flipping through the documents, then slowly looked up. "This court acknowledges that it lacked jurisdiction in this matter. The charges are dismissed." Part 6. The final word. The courtroom stood still as Beresford prepared to leave, but Ashford wasn't finished. "Your Honor," he said calmly, "yesterday I was publicly accused before dozens of citizens of violating protocol. Today, that accusation has been shown to be false. I respectfully request a public statement to restore the integrity of my name and my uniform." Beresford froze. It wasn't just a legal request. It was personal. And right. He cleared his throat. "Captain Ashford, the court acknowledges that it made an incorrect assumption based on personal bias. Let the record show you have acted fully within regulation, with honor and discipline. The court apologizes." Ashford nodded. "Thank you, Your Honor. May I say one final thing?" "Yes. The cross I wear is more than a religious item. It's a link to the man who taught me courage. But I also understand symbols carry weight. In a diverse society, we must balance tradition with respect for individual identity. That's not always easy, but it is necessary." Silence again, then applause. From the veterans. From the gallery, Judge Beresford said nothing more. But the look in his eyes had changed. Not just recognition, but respect the epilogue. In an age where appearances so often mislead, Captain Ashford reminded everyone in that courtroom, and perhaps the judge most of all, that we should understand the full story before we render judgment. Behind every uniform is a human being, and behind every symbol, a story.